Have you ever found yourself pondering the age-old question, why do bad things happen to good people? Perhaps you felt this way. I'm a good person. I help everyone. I never hurt anyone. I truly see myself as someone good. But still, why do these bad things keep happening to me? Why all this pain? Why all this suffering? And why does life keep playing whack-a-mole with my happiness? We've all asked these questions at some point in our lives, haven't we? And do you know how the Stoics viewed this? One of the first truths he realized was that life is full of suffering. Suffering is something everyone experiences. Ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius Seneca, Epictetus didn't think suffering was a VIP club for either the good or the bad. They knew it's a universal phenomenon. But when life throws us curveballs, when painful events shake our world like a maraca, we often feel like we're the only ones on this bumpy ride. We think our pain is a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. That's a very common feeling. Even I've felt that way sometimes, no shame in it. But what the Stoics encourage us to do is shift that perspective, to recognize that suffering is part of the human experience. Let me share a gripping story with you. There was once a young mother who faced the unimaginable loss of her baby. Her love for her child was so profound that she couldn't accept the heartbreaking reality. With her little one cradled in her arms, she sprinted from village to village, from town to town, desperately seeking a doctor who could perform the impossible and revive her child. But alas, no one could. Eventually, her journey led her to Epictetus, a wise philosophy professor at the Stoic school of Zeno of Citium, founded in Athens, Greece, 400 years after the school first took root. Epictetus looked at the woman and said, "I can heal your child, but there's one medicine we'll need. Bring me a handful of mustard seeds from a household where no one has ever died." The mother was then naively filled with hope. She thought it would be an easy task. She dashed to the nearest home and requested the mustard seeds. The family agreed. But when she inquired about deaths in their home, they replied, "Oh yes, our uncle passed away last year." So she moved on. Next house, same answer. Someone had died. Another house, another chilling tale of death. She ventured from home to home, all through the village, and the only answer she heard was, "Yes, someone has died here." That's when it dawned on her, death isn't just her burden. And it isn't something that happened only to her. It's something every family, every person, and human being must face. So she discovered an incredible strength within herself to finally embrace the loss of her baby. She returned to the Stoic college, not to express gratitude to Epictetus for saving her child, but for mending her heart. And this is the powerful lesson Epictetus imparts: to perceive suffering not as a solitary burden, but as a shared human experience. So the next time you're grappling with hardship and feeling crushed by pain, remember, you're not alone. Countless others are navigating similar struggles, experiencing the same life moments. Often we try to shove suffering aside. We wish it would disappear. We drift off to sleep, hoping that by morning, it will all have been just a nightmare. We wish our troubles would simply vanish. But the reality is, if suffering exists, it's real. The very first step is to acknowledge that, to see it clearly, to understand suffering, to accept it as it truly is. Only when we accept it can we begin to work with it, find ways to heal or transform it. Because here's the thing, we all have suffering in our lives, but how we respond to it is up to us. Often we waste so much time trying to change things we simply can't change, but what truly matters is how we choose to react. Jordan Peterson once met a woman whose method of choice in how she chooses to react to her situation still gives me chills every time I think about it. And so Jordan Peterson met a woman once in his clinical practice. And man, this was something, because she was about as damaged a person as you could hope to even contemplate, you know? And so she looked like a street person, and she'd come to this behavior therapy clinic that Jordan Peterson worked in as a student. She was stooped over. She wasn't very tall to begin with, but she stooped over, hunched over, and she approached everyone in a way that made people shy away from her. Because it's an odd method of approach, but the reason she did that was because she was really so timid and so humble that it was as if anybody that she approached had a light emanating from them that was too unbearable for her to behold. And so it wasn't so much an oddity, although it was an oddity, but it's categorized to me as being pretty natural humility at that. And so Jordan Peterson thought she had come to the behavior clinic because she wanted help at first, because she was an outpatient at a psychiatric hospital that Jordan Peterson worked at. And she couldn't communicate very well, partly because of her shyness and partly because her first language was French, which maybe she could communicate perfectly well in, but it's unlikely. And so she was not an intelligent person, technically speaking. You know, she was intellectually impaired and probably in the bottom 10th percentile of the population. And so that's a pretty rough place to exist cognitively because you're barely literate at that point. And her mother was very ill and was bedridden, and her mother's boyfriend was a violent alcoholic schizophrenic who was always harassing her about Satan. And you know, man, this woman, she has it rough, you know, to say the least. She didn't have anything going for her. She wasn't an attractive person physically, you know, people shied away from her. And so she just was the downtrodden of the earth, you know, in the realist sense. And this freaking woman, you know, she'd been an inpatient before. And this was a rough place, man, because it was a hospital after institutionalization. And there were tunnels connecting some of the wards to other wards because it was so cold in Montreal in the winter. And Jordan Peterson took his brother there one day, and it was like walking through Dante's Inferno. So the people that were left were the most demolished of the most demolished. And she had been in the inpatient ward for some time and then was released, and she wanted to talk to the hospital administration because she got out and she got this dog that she took care of, and she really liked this dog, and she took care of it and she walked with it, and she wanted to see if she could go find one of those inpatients here at this ward who was worse off than her and take them for a walk every day with her dog. Like, it's so funny, you know? Because you meet someone like that and they just have nothing. They literally, in every sense, have nothing in the world that you would recognize as any marker of success or status or ability. They're completely outcasted and tortured. And yet none of that mattered to this woman who was in that dismal state, because she was choosing to rise above her own catastrophe, which we alluded to in more than enough detail. And yet this freaking woman over here was at the clinic that day because she wanted to find someone who was worse off than her to try and serve. No, I mean, it just renders you speechless and wells you up every single time. It's just undefeated, you know? The moral of this story preaches that no matter what the universe throws at you, as human beings, what we're called upon to do ultimately is maintain our equilibrium and faith in the intrinsic goodness of being, which is an idea that is expanded upon, narratively speaking, and is a tale that tells the story of the most extreme trials that can be imagined. And I mean that literally, because that's partly why this clip has such potency to it fundamentally. And the point behind all this is in large part an injunction predicated upon me as a human being to try and do my best to accept all of life's terrible catastrophes full on, in good faith that the presupposition of doing so might be the manner in which life most abundant could reveal itself, while also giving myself the best odds of transcending my own suffering simultaneously. Sometimes the most painful experiences and hardest challenges turn out to be unexpected blessings. If life never threw us into the storm of difficulty or pain, how would we ever emerge stronger? One of the significant struggles I've faced is this profound sense of melancholy, a feeling of pensive sadness, typically with no obvious cause. I possess a unique chemistry that can unexpectedly pull me into a void, a vacuum that feels like sadness, depression, or simply being lost. However, I've come to realize that in those moments, I'm actually standing in a powerful space. Instead of questioning what's wrong or seeking to fix it, I've learned to dive deeper into it. I've started embracing the way my aloneness makes me feel. And if you stare at the darkness long enough, you will end up seeing the light. It's like learning how to swim. As I've gradually become friends with this space, my life has begun to transform. The fear that once resided in me has started to evaporate. And at some point, you will realize that you have to leap into the water. You might feel like you're drowning at first, but it's only through that struggle that you learn how to stay afloat and how to move forward. There's no point in constantly wishing and praying that pain will never touch your life. Instead, wish for the strength to face whatever comes, and pray for a mind that's steady and resilient through every storm. One day, I came to a full circle understanding that the aloneness I've been carrying is where my deepest love and healthiest mustard seeds are planted. I believe I was meant to wander the desert of pain, uncertainty, and frustration, kind of like the Israelites did after being freed from the tyranny of slavery in Egypt during the time of Moses. What's reassuring is knowing that the Exodus story metaphorically represents a fork in the road that all of us face, choosing between the indentured servitude life of tyrannical rule or the desert of chaos and the unknown. I ended up going the desert route, which I'm not sure I or anyone sane would choose consciously now that I think about it. And what's really ironic is how the desert doesn't represent freedom and is way more like a confusing and purposeless state of anxiety, confusion, and bouts of aimlessness. I was completely lost and for years was as far as found as one can get, and wandering around unconsciously for so long, akin to diving deep into a void without knowing whether I'd find the surface again. It took me a while to encounter a healthier state of being, where my ego, who I named Ethan, by the way, got humbled like a mother trucker. And after experiencing a state of purposelessness for quite a while, faking it to make it with the best of them, those moments right there, grinding through the trenches, that's ultimately where character is forged and built, laying the groundworks for gratefulness and appreciation to set in, celebrating the smaller victories that were once glanced over or taken for granted. So, those who may feel like you're wandering the desert right now, find a way to not let your suffering just wallop you and turn you into becoming someone who just ends up raining hell upon yourself and everyone else around you just because you're unhappy. And I am so grateful for that experience, because I was kind of entitled and needed to know how to navigate the darker parts of human nature with cautious optimism. And if you have intentions aligned towards aiming up and doing what is right, you'll emerge from your desert experience an entirely transformed creature. Because when you nurture that kind of mindset, a strong, calm mind ready to take on life's curveballs, that's when you can truly kick back and enjoy the peace. That's when happiness becomes your reliable sidekick. So always wish for that inner strength, not for a life free from bumps, but for the superpower to glide through bumps with style. And remember, it's not just bad luck that befalls good folks. Good things happen to good people too. That's just how the cosmic dice rolls. But what really counts is how we tackle suffering. Not as a cruel cosmic joke, but as a universal thread in our shared human sitcom. So, my wish for you is this. May you discover the strength to conquer any challenge life throws your way. May you cultivate a mind that's unbreakable and fierce, and may peace be your constant companion. Until next time, thanks again for watching. Stay up, stay blessed, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.